Howdy Beans, sometimes this podcast contains adult content, like the odd and maybe a few, so view discretion is advised, but I always say, enjoy the show nonetheless. Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another disgusting, deplorable episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke, the Howdy Bean. Hope you're all doing disgusting and deceitful today, this Halloween season. It is the final week of Halloween. I've had an absolute ball watching all these movies and reviewing them and talking about them and posting them and hopefully interacting with you all about them. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy. Today, we're going to be looking at a movie that is classed as one of the most disturbingly dark and creepy British horror comedies of all time. And in my opinion, should be a cult classic. But it's a movie that nobody ever talks about. But I think it's brilliant. And I say that only really have seen in bits when I was very young and not really have seen the whole movie, so I'm excited to get into it. That movie is Severance from 2006. But before we get into all of that and more, I want to do with housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean, and because it's the end of the Halloween season, I'm a bit tired, I'm a bit wired, I went a bit manic, and there's blood all over the walls, and there's a spider in the corner that's looking at me like I'm a tasty snack, and there's cobwebs growing, and it's just downright disgusting, to be honest, and I can't afford a maid. So you can help me out by following the podcast on Twitter at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Same if you listen on Spotify. You can now follow the podcast and you can leave comments and also leave a rating. So if you want to do all those, I'll be eternally grateful. Also, I'm on TikTok. Just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and you'll find me on there. And yeah, those are all the boring socials. Now, time to get into it. So, I absolutely love and adore the spooky season, as you all know. I just want to say quickly, if you're jumping on here, I have done other ones this spooky season. I've done Critters 3, Night of the Creeps, Maniac Cop. I've done other ones as well when I've looked into the stuff. I've looked into the other two Critters movies, Chopping Mall. So if you're into sort of your 80s but somewhat modern horror as well, like I did Eight-Legged Freaks and The Cottage. So if you want a sort of a bit of everything and more, as well as other sort of topics, other books, other video games, then by all means, please do go back and check out those other Halloween special episodes. Again, I greatly appreciate that. So, today's episode, as goes for the synopsis, goes as follows. So, members of the Palisades Defense Corps sales group arrive in Europe for a team building exercise. A fallen tree blocks the route and they must hike to their next destination. However, a psychotic killer lurks in the woods and he has a horrible fate in mind for each of the co-workers. And that is the film synopsis. As for the cast, so we have Danny Dyer as Steve. I love Danny Dyer. I always have. I've loved him since like Football Factory and Green Street and all these other movies that I grew up watching, but mostly hooligan sort of gangster drugs sort of movies. Nice one, brother. Some people get that, some people won't. But I've always been a big fan of him. In my opinion, he's a brilliant actor, but people just don't take him seriously because of the roles that he did sort of growing up and when he was younger. But I think he's a brilliant actor. I think he's funny, but he can also do the drama as well. So he plays Steve. He's the main character. Then we have Laura Harris as Maggie. Tim McLinney. He plays Richard. Toby Stevens as Harris. You might recognize that name. He was in the last Pierce Brosnan James Bond movie where he played the rich guy. And I can't remember the guy. I can't remember his character name in it, to be honest. I think he did the sort of, not, is it GoldenEye or something like that? But I don't think it was called GoldenEye. Whatever, but it was one of the last ones that Pierce Brosnan did. No Time to Die, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so he was in that. He played the villain in that. But in this, he plays one of the co-workers. And then we have Claudie Blankley as Jill, Andy Neyman as Gordon, Babo Casey as Billy, David Gilman as George, and Judith Victor as Nadia. And that is your cast. As for the production, again, I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is about these movies that I've chosen this year, but I am really struggling to find anything on them. It's like this movie, like usually again, I don't like using AI, but normally I can go onto Google, do a bit of research, and then ask sort of Google AI to find me sort of production sort of notes somewhere deep in the internet. Even Google's like, I don't know, mate. I don't know. So that's kind of got me more excited because the idea and concept of this movie, like again, we know it exists, it was made, but like the idea that I can't find anything on it has me more interested. So what I decided to do instead is that I watched the trailer. I haven't seen the trailer in years. It was the trailer that really brought me into it and made me actually want to watch it. And it was actually the trailer that confused me with another film, because I always remembered this movie. This movie was always stuck in my mind, but I can only remember parts of it. And I ended up getting this movie mixed up for years with The House of Wax without knowing about it, to be honest, until a couple of years ago that somebody corrected me. And then I managed to find this movie and I was like, oh my God, this is the movie that I remember seeing the trailer for years and years ago when I was younger, but I've never really gotten around to watching the whole movie. And it's just a film that I've always wanted to look into and talk about. So again, I'm excited today. And like I said, I haven't seen the trailer. So I decided to sit and watch the trailer. And the trailer starts off quite interesting. It starts off this idea of you've got these workmates that, all work in office. Some like each other, some don't. You've got sort of the corporate stooge who basically, he's very much by the book. He's very much like, we got to be protocol, we got to do this. He thinks he's more important than he actually is, to be honest. He's a dickhead, really. And then you've got all the other sort of office members, and they're going on this excursion, this team building exercise, which we've all done. If we worked in buildings and offices and stuff like that, we've all done a team building exercise. They go off. Their bus sends us up sort of tipping, and then the tone sort of changes. It goes from a team building exercise to a horror film, and they're stuck in the Hungarian woods in Europe, and it's like it gets really sort of Hills of Eyes. There are moments that reminded me of what's that movie called? Deliverance, that one. It reminds me of Deliverance. There was moments that remind me of Leatherface, of House of Wax at times as well. And I'm sitting there going, but there were comedy bits as well. So like there was like slasher, like it was proper 2000s horror. If you ever watch any 2000s like comedy horrors or the sort of horror films, all the trailers are basically the same, where you've got the rock music in the background, and then you've got somebody being sort of hacked and devoured like on screen, and there's blood and stuff like that. And it's just one of those where I'm like, oh, this looks brilliant. This looks fantastic. Completely up my alley. And then when I did a bit more research and I looked into people saying this is like one of like the most disturbing horror comedies, British horror comedies of all time, I was like, oh my God, I'm sold. Like the trailers got me intrigued. The movie concept and idea behind it itself has got me intrigued. The cast has got me intrigued because it's a pretty good cast, to be honest. And just to have Danny Dyer in it, he did another film like this, I think a year or so after he made this one, I think 2008, called Doghouse, which is brilliant. And maybe one day I'll talk about that one. But that's another horror comedy that I love, which is like, it's underrated. It's a movie that no one ever talks about, but I love it. It's got Stephen Graham in it as well. It's really, really good. But anyway, I digress. I couldn't find anything on the production. I did find some things, but I decided I'm going to leave them for the trivia at the very, very end. But yeah, I'm just over the moon excited to watch this movie, to see if it's as good as the trailer makes out to be, if it's as good as my memory and hype has lived up to be. And again, I've said this many times, try not to hype things up, because if you hype things up, you can usually sort of disappoint yourself. So fingers crossed, I don't get disappointed by this. Fingers crossed it is as good as I hope it will be. But we will see. The trailer looks brilliant. I'm enthralled. So I'm going to go off and watch this movie. And then when we come back, I'm going to tell you if it's good, if it's bad, first impressions, the story, sort of the blood, the guts, the gore, all the juicy bits, overall thoughts, bit of trivia. And then we'll wrap it up nicely and end Halloween proper. So until then, I will see you all in a second. And welcome back, everybody. So I've now finished watching Severance, and honestly, going straight into it with my first impressions. Out of all the movies that I've watched this month for Halloween, this has been the crowning jewel. This has been the best of them all. It's funny, it's silly, it's nasty, it's crude, it's British. It's bloody brilliant. To be honest, I really, really had a fantastic time. I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if it's because I'm British as well, and I just get the British humor. I just get our comedy. I just understand it better, or it's a fact of we've all, most of us. I haven't, luckily, but most people have worked in an office. We can all relate to that idea of working in office or working with different types of people. So you have, you've got the boss that's trying to suck up to the CEO. You've got the brown nosing sort of like guy who's always trying to, oh, come on guys, and you're like, fuck off, you know what I mean? And then you've got the guy he can't be asked, he's just there. And then you got the serious bloke who's made to do all the things that he doesn't really want to do. He just wants to crack on with work, but he has to do all this stuff. And then you've got all these different sort of archetypes of office sort of workers. And they're shown quite well in this movie. And we can all relate because we've all known somebody like it. And to be honest, if you don't know somebody like it, more than likely that person is you, sorry to say. So I think it's just brilliant. I think it's really, really good. And considering they only had like a $10 million budget, which you can tell they had a $10 million budget, but it's so well shot. Like it's shot like guerrilla sort of tactics where you've got you can tell you've got cameramen in the trees and behind bushes, and it's like they're the monster, they're the attacker. The camera, you the audience, are the predator. You're stalking them as they're like lost and getting tracked down and killed one by one in this sort of forest. And it's fantastic. It's really well done. Like I went in with zero expectations, came out with a big smile on my face. Well, the gore was incredible. The kills was great. I've got a few negatives. Don't be wrong. There's a few things where I'd sit there and go, okay, I wish they didn't do this, or that bit doesn't make sense. But overall, I'm left being like, that was funny. Like that was good. Like I miss these horror comedies. Like the thing is with when you think of British cinema, you don't naturally think of horror. You do think of comedies. You do think of our sort of just witty humor, to be honest. And I remember growing up, and majority of the movies that were out, and a lot of them were lottery funded, which actually kind of makes me kind of laugh, because I was on TikTok 2 days ago, and there was a woman on there, and I can't remember her name, but she mentioned how she remembers that there were so many like independent movies that used to come out in like the early 2000s. She used the example of Film 4. For anybody who doesn't live in the UK, Film 4 is a TV sort of station which shows a lot of movies. But they also used to, I don't know if they do it anymore, but they used to be a very common thing where they used to support a lot of indie movies. And we're talking like Ridley Scott, we're talking like big name sort of directors would also be making these movies as well, but there'd be a lot of indie movies. And again, there'd be a lot of horror, but there'd be a lot of comedy as well, a lot of romance, lots of stuff like that. I'm sure there's movies that I've reviewed for this podcast so far that are also part of that initiative. But also you'd get movies that were funded by the National Lottery. So here in the UK, we have the National Lottery, and the National Lottery goes into funding a lot of things. Like I'm not getting into it because this is a horror review, so I'm not going to get into it. But the point is, a lot of the money goes into the sort of entertainment business, and that will help independent movie makers to make movies. And I the reason I bring it up is because I miss movies like this. I miss sort of the independent horror British movies. Like one that people know the most is Shaun of the Dead, because that's kind of the same sort of vein of a very sort of British horror comedy. And again, when I reviewed The Cottage about 2 years ago, same sort of thing. That's a very sort of horror comedy, because we love our horror in the UK, and there are a lot of good British horror movies and TV shows. But we do love a good horror comedy, and you don't see them much anymore. So I was kind of sit there and appreciate it, but like, God, I remember movies like this back when I was growing up, Again, not to say it's brilliant, not to say it's like the best horror movie you've ever watched, and you will, but you'll watch it and you'll enjoy it. And if you're British, you'll be able to relate to a lot of the things, a lot of the jokes, and a lot of the sort of British isms of it. And if you're not British, you'll still enjoy it, because it's still a pretty sort of cracker of a movie. But yeah, first impressions, I love it. It's the best one I've seen so far, and it really sort of ends for me Halloween off with a bang, and it's bloody brilliant, to be honest. As for sort of the story, to kind of flush out the story of this movie, so the long and short of it is that you've got these group of office workers, and I would imagine they all work in the same department of this company called Palisades Defense, and they're on a sort of team building sort of exercise out in Europe in the middle of nowhere. And the idea is they're out there and they've just got to work as a team and, do the whole team building thing. We've all done it. And again, like I said, you've got the different sort of players. So you've got Danny Dyer's character as Steve. He's the druggie. He's the idiot. He's the sort of fool, basically. And again, if you've watched Cabin in the Woods, you'll be able to relate to a lot of this. So again, Steve, he's the fool. Whereas you've got Maggie, she is the gorgeous heroine. She is the sort of usually the final girl. She is sort of no shit given sort of girl, gorgeous, very capable. Well, it's kind of funny how all the rest of them are British. She's the only American, so she's very sort of gung ho. Then you've got Tim McNinney. I can never pronounce his last name. Sorry, Tim, if you listen to this. Probably not, but even so, he plays Richard. He's basically the boss or the office manager. I'd probably call him. And he's a suck up. He's nobody likes him. He's got no respect of anybody. He's a dick, really. But he's trying his best. Like, come on, guys, let's do this. And they were like, fuck off, piss off, Richard. Sort of thing. And he's an arsehole, to be honest. He has a pretty cool death at the end, and I've got to give it to him, but still he's a prick. So you've got him. Then you've got Toby Stevenson's character. He plays Harris. Harris is what you'd probably class him as the jock. Like, he isn't a jock in this, but you'd class him as the jock. He's kind of the gorgeous bloke, that really handsome guy who you think would be sort of there to save the day sort of thing, because he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't want to be there. You can tell that he's the sort of office worker. He's like, I don't want to be here. I literally just want to be at work and do my job, go home. I'm only here because I have to be, because it's mandatory. Then you've got Claudia Blakely's character, Jill. She is sort of the quiet, mousy, sort of innocent girl of the group, to be honest. And then you've got Andy Newman's character, Gordon. He's a brown noser. He's just sort of the guy that's like, oh, Richard, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, Richard. Yeah, don't you worry. And then they're all doing the team building, and he's the one that's getting really excited. Yay, yippee, team building, wow. And again, it's like, fuck off, Gordon. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. We're all meant to be a team building, but calm your tits. You know what I mean? And then you got Babu Casey, who plays Billy, who does a brilliant job as Billy, by the way. He's the assistant to Richard, but you can tell that Billy doesn't like Richard just as much as everybody else. He just has to put it with him because he is his assistant, and he's like, come on, guys, like, I know he's a prick, but come on. And they were like, but Billy, seriously. And they're like, yeah, he's like, I know, but come on, sort of thing. And I really do like Billy, to be honest. And like, you've got this sort of group, and they as they're traveling on this dirt road, you get to know them on the bus a bit. You get to learn quickly about what kind of person they are. And I love Danny Dyer in this movie, because during this age, this is when Danny Dyer was basically playing the same character. He was playing the pretty boy, the stoner, sort of the druggie, sort of the hooligan sort of character. But he was really good at playing those characters. Like, don't get me wrong, I still stand what I say. I still think he's a brilliant actor. I do. And I know a lot of people disagree with me there. But he was really good at playing the stoner fools, to be honest. And he does. And like, you instantly, when you meet him, he's on a escort service trying to get himself like some hookers, because he knows it's going to be boring. So it's like, well, they're liven it up a bit. And so they're on the bus, and they're getting there. And as they're on their way, they go through these dirt tracks into the mountains, and a tree's fallen over. It's blocking their way. And I don't like the copy I was watching doesn't come with any subtitles. I would imagine how much I don't know if it's Polish or sort of European sort of accents are used in this. That I would imagine in the original there probably was subtitles. I didn't have any in my one. But basically, the bus driver, he has an argument with Richard. Richard's trying to stand his ground. You got Harris taking the piss out of him because, like, you got Richard being like, "No, we'll take this little shortcut. The roads meet," and the guy's basically like, I would imagine he's probably saying, "No, like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going there." And Richard's like, no. And then you got Harris in the background going, "Go on, Richard, show him." Like, obviously taking the piss. Again, British humour. Like, if you're British, you completely understand. He's like, "Go on, Richard, tell him, give him what for." And obviously Richard's realising he's losing his ground. He's looking around like all embarrassed and like he's like, "No, we're going to do this." And in the end, the bus driver gets off, slings all their luggage off. He pisses off, and they end up having to walk. By this stage, Danny Dyer's character Steve, he's high off his tits on magic mushrooms. And he's like, I feel wet. I feel a wet patch. And they're looking down like, "You're fine." He goes, "Nah, I might piss myself, mate." And he's like, "No, Steve, you haven't." He's like, "Nah, I feel wet. I'm going to have a rash." So he runs into the woods. He screams like a girl. They all run after him. You're like, "You're right." And he's there, like, with his arse hanging out, having a slash. And he's like, I felt a bit wet. Like I was going to have a rash. So I went into the bushes, to have a slash. And I saw somebody in the woods. And then Maggie's like, "Steve, you're high, remember the mushrooms?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, right." And they all leave. And then Maggie says to Billy, like, "Watch him." And Billy's like, "Yeah." And it's funny, like, Steve looks at him, puts his finger up to him and goes, "Look, mate, I know we're mates and all, but you look at my cock one more time and we're going to have issues." And then Billy looks at him and goes, "Why would I look at your winky?" And he's like, "Just turn round. So obviously Billy turns around, Steve turns around, Steve's there, he's having a piss, and Billy turns around and Steve turns around. They both look at each other and have a little bit of a smile. And there's little moments like that going through that absolutely hilarious that really sort of make me giggle. And obviously from there, they find this sort of lodge and they're stuck there and they're seeing things. Obviously, Steve's off his head, but he's seeing things move in the woods. Obviously, they all think he's off his tits on mushrooms, which, fancy he is, but he's generally seeing things in the woods. You've got the other guys. It's like, "Look, we don't want to be here, but we have to be. This can't be the lodge." And it does really give sort of cabin in the woods sort of vibes, to be honest with you. And then sort of they get settled in, and you got the Gordon again. He wants to please everybody. He wants to make everybody happy and friends and blah 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 and all this jazz. Really sort of guy you just want to throat punch, to be honest. And he comes in. He's like, "Oh, you know what, guys? Like, stop arguing. It's dinner time. Sit down and eat." He comes, brings a pie, and I'm sitting there watching this, going, "Where's he get the pie from?" And I thought to myself, no, he's the kind of twat that has loads of different random things in his bag. He would have packed to make a pie. You know what I mean? He just gives me sort of prepared twat energy. And so I don't think anything of it. Like, he's got a pie. Neither do they think anything of it because, again, it's Gordon. Of course, Gordon would make a pie out of nowhere. So they're tucking in, eating this pie, and they're talking amongst each other. And they start telling stories, and they're on about, one guy, Harris, tells a story about that, but like back before the First World War, there was an insane asylum where they were, and that the suspected goes to see, finds out all the people in there are crazy, are basically saying to him, like, let me out. Basically realizes that the inmates, all the doctors have been imprisoned and that the inmates are actually running things and they killed him. Then the woman was like, well, that's not true. And then they start telling a story about these during the 90s, by the fall of the before the fall of the sort of Soviet war, you had these soldiers were brought here as a rehab center because they really, really liked killing, and it was a way to kind of detox them, but it didn't work. They ended up killing everybody there and just going on like a murder spree. And then obviously Steve comes along and goes, nah, it ain't, mate. What it was, right? It was a brothel. It was a sex house. And I look at him laughing. He's like, nah. Back in the day, there was a lot of old todgers in here, weren't it, right? Because he's obviously got a London accent. Obviously, I can't do a London accent at all, but, do my best I can, my best Dale boy. He goes, nah, they're all old todgers, right? It was all just really fit birds with huge honkers. And they all got bored up here, so they all tried to get off with the old men, but they couldn't get it up. So until one guy comes in, and of course, this guy is basically Danny Dyer, Steve, comes in, and they just attack him. They just, he's fucked, isn't he? Both figuratively and literally. And they're eating this pie, and then they realize, like, and then as Steve Danny Dyer's character, he does it, bites into it. He's like, what the fuck? Pulls out a tooth. And they're looking, oh, you show it's not a clove. And he's like, what, when have you seen a fucking clove that was rock hard, like it looks like a tooth? And then they look at Gordon, hold on a second. Where the fuck does pie come from? And they're like, it was on the shelf. And they're looking at Gordon, and they're like, what the fuck do you mean it was on the shelf? Like it was wrapped up it was saran wrapped on the shelf. I thought it was a gift. Who the fuck's going to leave a gift from George? Why the fuck would George leave a pie? I don't know. He was nice. And then he's like, well, and then he's not grasping the situation. Straight away, they've all grasped. They're all heaving and sort of thrown up. It's like, this place is decrepit. That could have been there for months. And he's like, well, I put it in for an hour. And then you got Harris looking, you go, what the fuck you mean an hour? Not all pies cook for an hour, you twat. He's like, well, I couldn't have undercooked it. He's like, and they were like, and it's one of those I'm sitting, have they literally just eaten human pie? Like, they never really get into it. And a few things happen there. Like, they see things in the bushes, and it starts to get a bit creepy. And obviously, I don't want to retell the tale of the full movie. But they do start getting picked off one by one. And the kills are great, to be honest. Like, Harris has this great moment when he's talking to Jill, because they've had enough. They're like, fuck it, we're going down the road. We're going to get signal. We're going to phone the coach bloke back. He's going to come back and he's going to tell us. He's going to come back and get us all, because it's fucked here, right? So as they go, they are having a chat, and they're on it because they're a weapons company. They're on about sort of weaponry, and Jill basically says, "Oh, well, the guillotine would have been more humane." And Harris is like, "Well, no, it wouldn't have been more humane." Jill was like, "Well, yeah, it will be. It's quick." And he's like, "Well, no." He said, "Your brain's awake for about 2 to 7 minutes after it's severed." So Marie Antoinette, when she had her head cut off, she would have been alive long enough to feel her head hit the basket and for blood to drip out of her neck and drip out of her mouth and eyes. You know what I mean? That she would have been alive long enough. And Jill's like, nah, that's not possible. Fast forward a bit. Harris is basically in the woods. He can't move. He's all sort of twisted and broken on the floor. And the killer comes along, chops his head off. The camera then angle changes from looking up to this guy to gamble, 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 obviously representing Harris's eyes. And his body's over here, his head's over here, he's looking, his eyes are moving, he's smiling. It's that look on his face, like, I fucking knew it. It's like in Shaun of the Dead, when he's like, that's a real gun in the Winchester. It's like, that's not a real gun. It's like, it is. Big Al told me it was a real gun. And then Sean shoots it. He's like, fuck, man. He's like, I fucking knew it was, sort of thing. It's just one of the moments on his face. It's like, yeah, I knew it. I knew it was true. It's funny little moments like that. The story's really, really good. It's really funny. It's brutal. The only thing that really I find that I have is a negative with this, to be honest. It's not a negative. It's more just like a few nitpicks and one little bit of a negative. So when it comes to horror movies, one of the things that makes horror movies so terrifying, and I'm going to use The Hills of Eyes and movies like that for sort of this example, but when you have a movie that is set in a remote location and people are being picked off one by one, people are being killed, people are dying, the fear and tension is not, or even though The House of Wax would be another great example, the fear comes from not knowing what it is that's hunting them. Is it a person? Is it persons? Is it a creature, monster, alien, werewolf, vampire? It's anything. Your imagination builds the character. Your imagination fuels whatever it is, and leading up to it, you don't know if it's one person or if it is a person or if it's a group of people or whatever, if it's a cult, what's going on. And when you're watching like movies like House of Wax and The Hills of Eyes, you only get glimpses. Because like in The Hills of Eyes, you don't really see his face. He wears a mask. He's very terrifying, foreboding, big, brutish sort of look. And when you do see his face, it's all messed up. It's all disfigured. So he doesn't look human. So you can disassociate. And that's the thing. It's the whole idea of disassociating, because when you give a face to a villain, especially if it's a human face and it's just a human face, for me personally, anyway, I don't know about anybody else, it loses its fear factor. Humans are terrifying, and humans can be terrifying. You don't have to have a human without a mask on to be terrifying. Again, Scream and stuff like that. But for me personally, when you've built up this whole sort of slasher, killer, or sort of Hills of Eyes, sort of House of Wax sort of feel, where people are getting picked off one by one, you kind of build up, oh, it's this like really terrifying creature. It's not until then you find out in this movie who the creatures are and who the people are, and that it's like, well, for me, it was like, oh, I don't know, it just took the wind out, because the suspense was building, the sort of camera work and everything that was building up to it, of all this stuff that was like, okay, little by little, I'm getting more and more sort of terrified and thinking of like, what is it, who is it, sort of thing. I'm not scared, but like, I was more just kind of the anticipation of like, oh my god, it's going to be some sort of mad sort of leatherface sort of person, because that's terrifying. But then, and again, it is a little bit spoiler, but when you find it's just people, they're just humans, and they're not scary humans. They're nothing like that. There's no cult. There's no cannibalism. It is just a band of people that are killing Palisades defense employees. It's the fact of, oh, that's a bit of a bummer. And there is a moment in the movie where you see the face of one of the killers, and then you see the face of the other killers, and it's just like, well, I don't know. To me, you just lose that gut, that horror, that tension. Because once I knew they were people, once I knew they were just people, like, yeah, they were sick individuals, like they were killing people. But when I knew it was just people and it wasn't some sort of big, terrifying, deformed creature or whatever, for me, it lost that impact. It's still good. It just, for me, that is, again, it's not a negative. I'd say it's more of a more personal thing. It was just one of them that just kind of, for me, it just kind of lost that edge, sadly. If it was like Hills of Eyes, mutants, creatures, some creatures from the Descent, Wendigo, something like that, something that's like otherworldly or supernatural, then okay, But when it was just people with guns, and like that, again, when they use guns as well, I'm like, okay, yeah, you've used guns, but use guns as traps. Don't use guns as guns. Like, when somebody walks into a room, they do a shot at a cord, a tripwire, and then a shotgun blast takes outside of the red, sort of thing. A trap like that, or something on the Saw level. Not just run around with guns, because then for me it was just like, oh. But no, when it's with knives and when it's with axes and hatchets and stuff like that, and bear traps, because like there is a really gruesome scene of a bear trap, to be honest, in this movie. Then it's terrifying, because it's more hand-to-hand combat. It's more close range. It's like terrifying, really. But with a gun, you kind of lose that sort of fear, really. But there are, like I said, there are some good sort of kills. Like Gordon ends up having a paddy because they start shooting him with paintballs. He's freaking out. He's like, oh no, don't do that. Health and safety. And then he steps backwards and he steps on a bear trap. So you got Steve and Billy trying to pull this bear trap. They're saying to Gordon, pull. He's freaking out. He's not pulling. So Steve and Billy are losing leverage. So it's snapping again back onto his foot. They pull. He's not moving. Snap. They do this about 2 or 3 times. And in the end, it's just getting deeper and deeper. You can hear the sounds. And eventually, Gordon just freaks out, pulls, and then just ends up pulling his leg. And he ends up losing his foot. And they're all freaking out, panicking. And they end up giving him ecstasy, because it's like, well, there's nothing we can do for him, but at least we can give him a good time. So they end up giving him ecstasy, and he's off his tits while and he's just like on cloud 9, sort of thing. And so the kills are great. It was just when the reveal of the monsters, it's a bit of a or small little nitpicks as well. So near to the end of the movie, Steve and Maggie, they've managed to get themselves away. They've run away, everybody else has died. Like, they've managed to run away, and they find themselves to where they were meant to be originally, which was the actual lodge. They get there, they find the CEO, George. He's there. He's grinding on some hookers. These are the escorts that Steve hired at the beginning of the movie. Because the beginning of the movie starts very oddly. So the movie starts at the end and then the beginning, if that makes sense. So how the movie begins is you've got these 2 young, beautiful European women. You don't know that the hookers at this moment. They're just young, sort of European girls. They're running. They've got a guy behind them, and they fall into a ditch. They're like, "Help us! Help us! Help us!" And the guy looks in. And he's like, "Nah." He runs. He ends up getting his leg caught in a snare. He gets strawn up, and then out of nowhere, a guy comes and just cleaves him into literally like I don't know what it's called. It's like guts him, basically, slices him down the belly. And you don't see it, but he's just got loads of blood dripping down his face. But I would imagine hung, drawn, and quartered, just literally just took all his innards out, that sort of thing. And then you got these two girls, and they start sort of taking the jackets off, and they've got a piece of wood, and they're trying to throw it up. And they both look at each other, both look at each other's boobs, bras, and they go, "Oh, and you get what they're hinting at, sort of thing." And then it cuts, and then the movie begins, and they're on the bus, and that moment is basically where they are in the end of the movie, basically. So Steve and Maggie go at the end of the movie. They find George, the CEO. He's grinding on. He's like, "Where you been? Where is everybody? What's happened?" They end up telling him. He don't believe him. He's like, "Nah, you're being stupid. Don't worry about it." He's like, "No, there are terrorists coming." He's like, "There's people that are trying to kill us." So he's got a giant bazooka, which is basically a SAM launcher. Which, if you know what a SAM launcher is, if you played enough Call of Duty, that's not like a normal rocket launcher. That is one that goes up into the air and then locks on to something like a tank, or it locks on to sort of an aircraft. So I won't give anything away, but let's just rest assured this thing fucking doesn't work. So they end up legging it and running away, and then that's where that happens. The bit that confuses me, and this bit that makes no sense, is the fact of the road that they were on originally was blocked, right? Blocked by a piece of timber. And that's why they had to get off and they had to walk, and that's where the sort of story begins. But they were going to get there before George gets there, and they would have got there most definitely before the escorts get there, right? So how is it that George and the escorts are there and having a party and grinding on each other without the others? Like, did the monsters come and remove, did the killers come and remove the lodge once they got all these people, or was there another way around? And if there is no way around, why didn't they go that way? Sort of thing. This, what I mean? Like, it kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense. And how did the hookers get there in the first place? Did they get a taxi? Did they drive? You know what I mean? How did George get there? Did he drive? Blah, blah, blah. And then, it's little thing like this one. I'm thinking they're freaking out and running. If they drove there, get in your cars and drive off. Don't run into the woods when you're being chased by armed men. Just get in your car, fuck off. So it's just little things like that when I'm sitting there thinking, okay, where did the hookers come from? How did they get to this lodge? How did George get there? How is it they're all there? Sort of thing. It's little things. It's not story breaking. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact of why and how. And if it is, then why couldn't have they gone that way? Why couldn't they have gone in that direction? Like, why did they have to go through all this? Why couldn't they have just gone the route that they all went? But it's neither here nor there. The point is, that's just a little thing that sort of bothers me. But again, it's not an overly bad thing, to be honest. But yeah, overall, fantastic movie. I really, really enjoyed it. It'd be one I'd want to watch again. It'd be one that I'd recommend to a lot of people. It's funny, it's silly, it's British, it's dark. Like the humor's like, it's dark humor. To be honest, there's a lot of dark humor in it. Like I said, with the whole missile launcher thing. Again, I don't want to give that away, but that's a very dark sort of moment in the movie, to be honest. But yeah, like it's a pretty good movie. It's up there with The Cottage. It's one of those that are like, I would now recommend to a lot of people to give it a go, because I've never heard anybody talk about this movie. This is one of the movies that, again, came and went. 2006, this movie came out in cinemas, and then it went, and then nobody ever talked about it again, which is funny because it's currently got high ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, it's highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes, and all the people that reviewed it is mostly positive, to be honest. So it is a highly rated sort of British horror movie. It's just the fact of it just, no one talks about it. So my hope is, like The Cottage, that people will go and give this movie a watch and see for themselves. It's only about an hour and 30 minutes. It's not a long movie, and to be honest, it gets going quite quickly. And for anybody who's interested, there are some boobies. Not a lot of boobies, but there are a bit of boobies. Basically, Steve, he's basically taking out two of the guys, right? Proper like football hooligan fashion, really, right? He gets his arse handed to him, but he manages to kill them both. And he actually kills one of them quite in a very funny way, which I won't ruin it. It's very funny. And he's sitting there. He's been stabbed, sort of in the wrist. He's standing there relaxing, like, sort of like I'm fucked. And then all of a sudden you hear like a thump thump, thump thump. He looks down, and then there's this like piece of wood which has got like two bras, some trousers, and like a jacket all hanged up on it. And he's looking at it. He's kind of looking. He's like, that isn't what. What? And he sees a hole. And he keeps throwing it, and eventually he crawls over and he looks in, and it's the escorts, with their boobies out. He's like, and all he does, he looks at his smile, he's like, you know what I mean? Because that's all he cares about. He's a lad, and he just cares about tits. He's like, yeah, sort of thing. And where was I? Sorry, I got lost in booby heaven. Anyway, sorry. Stop talking about boobs. Carry on. So you get all that. And then you get this really cool sort of moment as well at the end where you get the European, one of the European girls. She's got cleavage showing. She's got a bra on. She's got a jacket on though, and she's got cleavage showing. And there's really cool slow mo where she's like shooting this one guy with this machine gun, and like you've got jiggle physics basically. It's not a video game. It is real jiggle physics. To be honest, it's like booby physics. Boobs are shaking, and it's really cool sort of moment where she kills this guy, wasting a lot of ammo, but that doesn't matter. It's just for the shot, really. Kills the guy. They're all done, and sort of all is well, and the movie ends. But overall, fantastic. Really, really good. I would recommend it for the kills and for the gore and for the comedy. It is a pretty good film. It's one of those where you sit there and you're like, I don't know what people are talking about this. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. And again, it might not be for everybody. Like I said, it could just be the fact of because I'm British, I get the British humor. I get the British comedy. Like it works for me because I'm used to movies like this. Like I'm a big fan of Inside Number 10, and League of Gentlemen and things like that. I love dark comedies. I love dark humor. I love gore and British sort of horror movies and stuff like that. Like I love films like this. So for me, this is color coded for Luke, to be honest. So of course I was going to like it. I had no doubt that I wasn't going to like it. So it shouldn't be surprised that I do like it, and I do recommend it. So yeah, over thoughts, I definitely recommend giving it a go. I really do. If you can find it somewhere, more than likely you could find the DVD online somewhere for cheap. I ended up renting it. Wasn't very much. It was like I think about £2.50. It wasn't a lot to rent, to be honest. But it would be worth owning it just for the sort of, I don't know. I'd say just be good to own it just for the horror collection, really. Like if you just wanted to if you collect horror and you haven't got this one, I recommend it. And same for The Cottage as well. If you haven't watched The Cottage, watch The Cottage. Then listen to my review. I had a brilliant time with that film. I love it. It's still a movie that I recommend. When everybody goes, recommend a horror movie, The Cottage. Well, from now, it's going to be The Cottage, Severance. Both of them. Just watch them both back to back. They're brilliant. You'll have a fantastic time. And yeah, so that's it, really. Just watch it. It's absolutely fantastic. As for sort of a bit of trivia, so there is a moment in this movie where Harris, he is driving the bus, and they keep telling him on the bus to just like slow down, slow down. Harris isn't listening, and he flips the bus, completely goes full foobar. Everybody gets fucked up in it. And there's a bit of trivia that I found, which was just brilliant. Just some of the best trivia I've ever read, which says a lot because I've read a lot, but it's some of the best trivia I've ever read. So, pardon me. It goes as follows. The actor who plays the irate bus driver at the beginning of the movie is a Hungarian stuntman, and it is he who drives the bus during the crash scene. In the DVD featurette, Crashing a Coach, director Christopher Smith goes into detail about how the crash scene was staged, and in it he points out how the Hungarian stunt team were less concerned with health and safety issues than British stunt teams. So you already can see where I'm going here, right? Smith explains that for the crash scene, the stunt coordinator told Boros to drive at 35 miles an hour. But Burroughs felt this wouldn't produce a good enough scene, so he hit the stunt ramp at 50 miles per hour, producing a much more spectacular crash than Smith wanted. As it was a one-time only shot, this newly spectacular crash forced a hasty rewriting of the screenplay, as due to the severity of the crash, the characters now needed to be substantially more injured than was originally planned. Smith was also amazed that the only safety equipment Burroughs used during the scene was a seatbelt and a motorcycle helmet. Indeed, during the stunt, Burroughs was not completely unconscious. And if you see, because obviously the scene is used in the movie, but if you see the bus flip and the way it crumples and the way it smashes, no wonder he was knocked unconscious. And to be honest, fair play. They rewrote the scene, because it would have made no sense having a crash like that and they all just get up and walk off this bus. It wouldn't have made sense. So it works, because they are complete foobar when you see them inside of this. Inside the bus, you've got Jill. She's the first one to wake up. She's walking. She's like, I think she's just in shock. So she's walking. She ends up walking into the woods. And she gets halfway into the woods. She ends up feeling the blood on her head, looks at the blood, ends up pulling like shards of glass out of her head, looks at her hands, and then she just starts to panic and scream. And then one of the killers, is behind her, and that's her gone. And then you've got Harris. He's flown out of the driver's window. He's all, again, foobar, crumpled up, and that's when he sort of loses his head. Everybody else is all conjoined. You think everybody would be dead in there. There'd be nobody left. But obviously, it's a movie. They've all got to be alive. So they're all complete foobar, messed up. Gordon, he's just he's already lost a leg. He's lost a lot of blood, so he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, sort of thing. But it's brilliant. Granted, fair play to Boros for going 50 miles an hour when he was meant to go 35 and almost killing himself. Proper commitment there, mate. And it is a good scene. But yeah, that's some of the best trivia I've ever read. When I read it, I was like, I'm going to save that. Then we had, next one is, because Laura Harris, who plays Maggie, had such a fun time on set with her fellow cast members, she found that she was often in too good of a mood to reach the emotional depths needed for a character when it was time for her to shoot. As such, just prior to filming emotionally draining scenes, she would listen to dark and depressing music to help her get out of the sort of cheerful mood she was in, which is pretty funny. Then we have sort of the logo for Palisades Defense, more or less a square with one corner missing, is a sly hint at the company's way of doing business by cutting corners. I never noticed that, but that's a great bit of trivia. The swimming pool full of fallen leaves that Gordon falls into is actually a few inches deep fountain with a diving board installed on the side. There's a scene and where Gordon, he's looking around, he's meant to be looking for a generator. He ends up finding this diving board and there's loads of leaves, and he's bouncing this diving board. And at first it's funny, and then he gets to a point where I'm like, just fall in, you prick, fall in. And he's bouncing on one leg, and I'm like, he's either going to keep bouncing and he's going to jump in and he's going to be full of dead bodies, or he's going to be full of bear traps and he's going to die, or he's going to bounce, and the killer's going to just throw an axe or something and shake his head off. No, he just kind of jumps, falls in, and he gets covered in crap, really, which was like, oh, I would have, if I was making the movie, I would just filled it full of bear traps. That would have been great. He would jumps in proper Saw style, falling, sort of thing, dead. But he does get killed by a bear trap later, so it's all fine. Well, not killed, but seriously maimed. And then finally, Toby Stephens wanted to do the movie because he'd never done a horror film before and liked the comedy horror mix of the project. And that's it. That's all I've got for trivia. So yeah, I think that's it. That's all I've got left. So I hope you've all liked and enjoyed it as much as I have. I've had a fantastic time. Again, let me know if you want me to do more reviews. Like, when I say reviews, I mean like adult reviews where I have a warning at the beginning and I have a few swears in it, and I'm a bit more loosey goosey because I don't tend to swear in my reviews, mostly because I don't feel like it's needed. The way I am with my reviews and the way I am with what I do here is the fact of I like to just to speak normal, speak naturally, but when I do swear in a review, it's mostly to emphasize how annoyed I am or upset or down. And so when I do swear, you kind of take notice. Oh God, he must have really not liked it because Luke doesn't swear. So I tend to be sort of PG, shall we say, when I do my reviews. But I do have fun when I could just let go and just say what I want to say. It doesn't really matter. So please do let me know if you want to see more of reviews like this, more sort of adult reviews. Maybe I'll look into more sort of adult sort of movie. Well, when I say adult movies, I don't mean porn. You know what I mean? Like movies like American Pie and stuff like that. Where I can swear and talk about stuff like that, then by all means, please do let me know. If you've got any ideas or recommendations, again, let me know. If you've enjoyed Halloween season, thank you very, very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. But there is one more episode left to come. As I always do, I like to do a bonus episode to end off Halloween. I won't give away what it is. I won't give any hints, but just stick around because Halloween is not over yet. There is one more surprise to come. So stick around for that one. But yeah, I've been your host, Luke the Howdy Bean. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure, as always. I've had a fantastic time this Halloween. I've had some absolute cracker of movies. Really difficult to find any information on them. So that's going to be my sort of look and work essay, shall we say, next year. My assignment when I look at horror movies next year for next Halloween, I'm going to try and make sure I pick ones that actually have a lot of production notes that are easily accessible to find, because it just seems every movie I chose this Halloween was like it just came out of nowhere. It's like this movie just poof exists. There it is. There was no production. It just was made, and that's it. So that's going to be my assignment for next year. But please do, if you enjoy the podcast, you enjoy this, follow me on Spotify. As I'm recording this, I'm currently about 139 followers. So please do follow me on Spotify. It helps me with the Spotify algorithm, the more followers that I have. That basically tells Spotify that I am popular and that people are interested and want to hear it. And they will push my content further and wider to more people and hopefully get seen and heard by more people. So if you haven't followed me yet, please do. Again, same with the ratings. If you haven't rated the podcast yet, please do rate the podcast. That really, really helps as well. If you listen on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Same sort of thing. Helps with the algorithm, helps me get seen more. Again, follow me on Twitter, HowdyBeans_pod. I've got a lot of things planned for November. I've got a lot of lovely Christmas things planned as well. And like I said, more things coming this Halloween. So keep an eye out for that. I'm on TikTok as well. So I'm here, there, and everywhere. Just support me where you can. I greatly appreciate it. I have a fantastic time doing these episodes. I want to do more of them. I want to do more like it. And it all comes down to you guys give me feedback and let me know that you all enjoy it. So thank you very much for listening. I'm absolutely knackered. It is now 10 o'clock at night. It is pitch black in my room, and I'm tired. So I'm going to go sort of hit the hay. And I'll see you all very soon for the final special episode of Halloween. But until then, I will see you later.